Hi, everyone. Tonight I'm speaking to somebody that I really respect and really love what he's done in terms of education, his care, and his thought. And I'm really, really excited to be sharing his new book with you. So, for me, the way I've engaged with Richard over the years is he's been a presenter for me at Tandawazi when I was still involved over there. And 4 years ago, I had the honor of interviewing him for his book, which was then his new book, which was his third edition on making quality education happen. And for me, that was really exciting because the concepts within there for teachers is just incredible. So if you've never had a look at this book, please do go and explore this book as well. But tonight we're looking at his new book, and it's incredible. I truly believe that every family should have one of these books in their homes. It's called Give Quality Kids Quality School Days. The distinguished professor, Professor Jonathan Jansen, wrote a wonderful review of the book. And part of his review speaks about every home should have one, and every teacher should read this compelling argument for making school a happy and productive place for all our children. And I truly believe and agree with what he has written there. This book is just incredible. And I'm so excited to be sharing it with you this evening. The exciting thing is that School Days, which is an educational platform that raises funds for education, has really got inspired by what they've seen with Richard. And in terms of the catchiness of the title, what they've now done is that they are putting their book on their website, and you are able to pre-order the book on the School Days website, and go and have a look at that over there. So for me, giving quality kids quality school days has got 43 incredible topics which you explore and engage in such a wonderful, light-hearted manner, giving you really incredible tips to explore and to look at. And so for me, that's why I really think if you look at the range of tips and things here, why every family should have a copy of this book within their homes. So I am super excited to welcome Dr. Hayward and have him join me as we share about his incredible book. Good evening, Richard. Thank you for being here. I just so much want to tell people about your book and get people to share. It's such an incredible book, and I think it can really benefit so many people. So thank you for being willing to participate in this discussion.
Well, thank you very, very much for such an introduction. It's really fantabulous, I think would be a word to describe it. But thank you so much for such kind and generous words.
Oh, no. I mean, I want to ask you, as a retired principal who was an award-winning principal, you worked at 2 public schools. Why did you think this kind of book was needed?
I think that if you look at schools, there are millions of children who love school. They're very happy to come to school. But sadly, there are also millions of children who, as the years go by, they like school less and less. Think of the grade 1 child who arrives at school filled with enthusiasm and falling in love with their grade 1 teacher and being so happy. But what happens as the years go by, that happiness disappears. And there are children and teenagers who can't wait to get out of school. But what does happen, of course, is that there are children who really love school. And the book is really based on my experiences professionally with family, friends, and just talking to people that you say, you look at them and you say, well, these children are happy. What are the things that they do? And the book is very honest. It talks to the reality of bullying, stealing, children who are isolated, children who don't get recognition at school, children who don't get on with their teachers, and sometimes the teachers are at fault. And so the book is really just there to help moms, dads, friends, aunts, uncles, those folk who really want the best for their children. What can you do just to help make school days happy days?
Oh, that's a wonderful description. So, if you had to summarize it, what do you think can be done to give children happy days at school? What would your tip be, looking at it from a narrow point of view?
I think that, to use the old little thing about the triangle, the parent, the child, the teacher, I think that's an important thing. But I also think that you've got to have those very honest discussions with kids about what's going to happen at school. And you've got to give them the tips to survive. So take, for example, a very obvious one, bullying. I mean, we've only seen on the news today the Cape Town high school, the horrific bullying situation. But the reality is there's not a single school on this planet that is bully free. I repeat,
Yep.
not a single school on this planet that is bully free. But what it is that good schools, quality schools, have in place the mechanisms to deal with the incidents of bullying and to keep it down to a minimum. But it's for the child actually to be given the tools as well. How can the bullying? How can the child be told, if you're bullied, these are the things you can do? And in the book, I actually quote Jo Hamilton, who's written a book on bullying, and she is a psychologist, a child psychologist, educational psychologist, who actually just comes forward with tips that are very practical that help. So, like, that's just one example. Stealing. There are some kids, every year they have their soccer boots stolen or their school blazer or their stationery kit stolen. And these kids, every year is like quite a contest between home and school about what's going on, that why are all these thefts happening? And the other children who go through their entire school career and nothing gets stolen. What's the difference? What are the things that you do? And so the book actually just comes up with the practical suggestions as to what you can do to deal with the fact that stealing happens.
And I think, sorry, if you want to carry on.
No, thank you. I'm listening.
I just think if I look at the topics that you've got, what made you select these topics?
It's just sort of observations that when you are teaching and you're interacting with children and families, you just sort of intuitively, or what people tell you, that say, this is the kind of thing that it's a practical thing. Like, say, take a thing like homework, for example. There are very few children who like homework, but you can make it bearable. And the book is just filled with the most practical, simple little things. Put them in place and you're okay. And take a thing like routine. Some kids, they run through, they have 12 years of schooling and they so deurmekaar and upside down. Every single year is just like, when will this kid get its act together? But if you just, and it's just pure common sense, if you get a child into a school routine, this is the time you get up. This is the time you go to school. This is the time you do your homework. And a child gets into a routine, and it's amazing how effortless the school day is. And then there are other little things like, for example, just being kind. Just be a
Mm.
kind human being. You'll straight away have friends. Um, we live in the Rainbow Nation. At times, I can't see the rainbow sometimes, but most of the time we can see the rainbow. But what it is what does this mean at a practical level? So, it's little things like in the classroom where there are children from many different cultures, different languages, but practical things. What do rainbow kids do? For example, at school, they've got to learn a second language, and in many schools now, a third language. So how about just this is your home language, but here are other languages that I can learn to say Tumela, Kielibocha, Siabonga. In other words, that you reach out across other people, other cultures. And straight away, when you've got that attitude, as a child's got that attitude towards
Mhm.
other kids,
Mhm.
straight away school days just become that much happier.
Yeah,
So,
that's very true.
mm.
If we now think of the book and the topics, um, why do you think the book is useful to teachers?
Because I would think that I would like to think that teachers would resonate with the book because they say, huh, I've got a kid like this in my own class. Uh, and then they'd hopefully say, but the book is actually written, well, that's telling moms and dads and family and whatever what to do or making suggestions, but it's also telling the teachers what they can do. And there is an undercurrent of psychology in it. Um, the bibliography at the back uh, is extensive as to place or books, articles to read that reinforce and give you a bigger sort of understanding of the issues.
Ah, and I think that resource at the back is really useful. So if I just flip through it for people, they can see it's pages and pages of resources that you've provided for people to use. So I think that's really great. That with the references in terms of how you can then go in and extend the learning for yourself even further with what you've put in over there.
Yes.
How would you recommend teachers use this book?
Well, I think teachers can raise the topics. So we mentioned bullying, stealing, um, non-recognition of what they do. That when a child tries very hard and doesn't achieve, and it's to tell them stories. Like true stories. You know,
Yes.
of this actually happened. You hear a story and you think it's a lovely story, but you actually realize no, it's not actually a story. It's a fact. This actually happened to a child, and this is the way the child was helped. So that I think it's a kind of book that says to people, you want your kid to be happy. The teachers want your kids to be happy. Together, these are some of the practical things. I mean, like just a topic like control your anger. We all
Yeah.
have moments of anger. We all have moments of rage. But you've got to actually teach kids how to manage your anger. Um, and it's also to tell parents to be gentle with their children. So a thing like perfectionism, and we all know
Mm.
that parents get can get over the top about it. They expect too much, and just chill out, be relaxed. Like if your daughter's a star at netball and is the school netball champion, brilliant. And if she gets 52% for English, but that's her best, you congratulate her and tell her to keep on having the same mind approach.
Yeah.
One of the topics that we do discuss in the book is that school isn't always a fair place.
Mm.
It's a hard thing to say, but I'm saying that from a professional viewpoint, that
Yeah.
sometimes the school makes mistakes in its selections of leaders class captains, whatever, or a child clashes with a staff member. And so the
Yeah.
book confronts that reality, but it says, yes, this is what happens in school, but you teach the child how to deal with that kind of situation. The point is that life isn't always fair. That applies outside the school and it applies inside the school. But you give the child coping mechanisms to deal with it.
The stories that you tell in every single one of these topics, were they all ones you experienced, or they also ones that you heard? Where did you get this wonderful wealth of all the scenarios that you've got with every single chapter?
No, the stories come from obviously a small number that I've personally experienced, but then in a staff room, people chat and they tell us, amongst teachers, we tell each other little stories, and somebody says, this child will drive me to drink, this kind of thing. But what it is that the stories are based on real incidents where you come across a child who's marginalized. And this is a reality in schools, that children can be marginalized. And what it is that they're based on true things, but also at a professional level, at a teacher level, parent level, caring adult level. People need to understand things like the introverted child is equally important and valued as the extrovert. And of
Yeah.
course, there's another side to extroversion, and that is extroverts push themselves forward. They sometimes, too often, get into leadership positions, and the introvert is ignored or just forgotten. So the book raises things, issues that happen in schools that I honestly believe there's not a single parent or caring adult who looks at this list that you've got on the screen who won't say, you know what, that's exactly something that's happening to my own child or to
Yeah.
this kid that we love. That,
Yeah.
and what can we do? And if the book just helps say to people, just look at this, think of it this way, and take it forward. This thing about teachers, sometimes in their intention to help children, get too critical.
Yeah.
And it's just to say to kid, if this happens to you, this is what you can do. We talk about peer pressure, and so many kids are drawn into wrong groups.
Yes.
In other words, they feel isolated. I must belong, so therefore I will join this pressure group or, this gang or whatever. And the book actually just says these are the practical, simple little things that you can do to stay out of negative peer pressure groups, but also it's to say to caring adults, this is what you can do to support.
Oh, okay. And that's really important in terms of all the issues um, that you raise within this book. I just love the way you end the stories off on a positive note or with such wise words in terms of how to address it. I was wondering if you actually spoke to any of the characters that you wrote the stories about. Were the individuals you reached out to when you were writing particular stories, and children or people or adults came to mind that were children long ago?
Well, parents and kids teach me. I've had children who've come in and to talk to me, and they've said, this was unfair,
Yes.
what happened here. And I've apologized. Um, People who are listening to this program, kids that I've taught and parents will know that I've said, as a school, we made a mistake. I made a mistake. I apologize. And I think this is the important thing, is to remember no teacher is
Yes.
perfect. And if you create an environment which says, look, we're in this game together. What do teachers want? What do parents want? What does the kid want? They just want to be happy. We, you know,
It's,
and what are the practical little things that we can do? I mean, I even talk about sleep more, like don't get obsessed about school. If you
yes.
want to veg out sometimes, veg out. If you don't want to take part in certain activities because the pressure's too much. And I mean, there are the stories I've had of children who come to me, cricket players, and they said, oh, I don't want to be in the first 11 cricket team. I really don't. And the coach says, but I want you because you're, and the kid says, I don't want the pressure. I'm going to play
Mm.
better. So I'd like to think that the book really is a book that affirms every single child. It's a book that says, you want to be happy. Here are some tips that will help make you happy. And moms and dads, aunts, uncles, friends, here are some tips that you, because you can't be at school all the time, here are things that you can do to help. So it's just, and it's a very, I like to think it's a very practical book, and it's
Yeah.
not, it's not heavy on psychology, but it's got a psychological sort of undertone. Are you with me? Um, just a little point here is like when you look at intelligence, there's this narrow idea that intelligence is to do with how good you are in your home language and how good you are at maths. Well, actually, that is so narrow. Intelligence is of all kinds. The little guy that's brilliant on the soccer field, the musician, the child you never see, the introvert who suddenly is your star performer in a school play.
Yeah.
And you just sort
Yeah.
of, well, this is sort of, these are all talents. And I like to feel that the book is I repeat the word, is an affirmation that we all can be happy at school. And here are some suggestions that'll help.
I think it's brilliant, and I must say I love the way it's easy to read. It's so the stories are so compelling the way you've written them, but they're short and they're really written in such a beautiful way that you want to finish the little story. And I think that the way you've written it, that parents could use it almost as a discussion tool with their children, or teachers could use it as part of a life orientation or life skills lesson. So I really think with you saying it's practical, I really do agree with you that the way you've written it is really practical and useful for people.
Well, those are very kind words. And thank you for saying that because I also believe that a child in grade 6 could read the book
Yes.
and benefit from it. And the book has, as you say, um, different topics. Like there's the one about read. Uh, we've all got hobby horses, but at a personal level, um, I cannot stress the importance of reading, but
Yes.
also reading. Like again, I just think of a story on the side of a little guy came into my class. He would never read. He would read, you know, well, because you're the teacher, and I would like you please to read. But then you look at the little guy and you just think, well, he doesn't want to read. But then he's a great little soccer player. So you just make sure that every Monday morning in the classroom there are newspapers.
Oh,
And he starts just looking at the pictures of his heroes. And then occasionally he'd come and with a little growl say, what is this? What's this word? Are you with me? And eventually his love of reading just in one little area about sport, soccer,
yeah.
it just
Yeah.
it grows. And of course, uh, reading helps all of us, not only children, but actually to
Mm.
cope with some of the tough issues in our own lives. So that you read books about people who've had to deal with this or that. And although it's a novel or something far away from you personally, it's not really far away from you personally. It's part of just being a human being. So the book is
Yeah.
very much like um, saying, live with it. Take things like motivation, just a point here. So often motivation, if you do this, daddy will buy you this, or you get a new mobile or whatever. But you've got to understand that we all get motivated differently.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need an extrinsic motivation. Do well and here's something. But you obviously want children to be motivated internally, intrinsically. So it's a simple little book. I hope it helps.
So, if you had to give parents advice on how they use the book, what would your key tips be in terms of how they could use the book?
I think maybe just to have the book in the home. It can just lie in the home. And you know how often it is with books. You every now and then you occasionally just refer to it. You know what I mean? Like you get a graze. Are you with me? And you know what to do. Oh, this is how we fix up this graze, or somebody's got a headache. Are you with me?
Yes.
But what it is things happen, and when things happen, it's a book around the house, and you say, well, what do we do now? Are you with me? That schoolwork is very difficult at times. Very difficult at times.
Yeah.
So how do we cope with work that is very difficult at times? And of course, there's that Atomic Habits, that book, which says, like we all know, how do you eat an elephant? Bite by bite. How do you
Yeah.
translate that into a classroom? A child who's battling in maths or whatever subject, how do you go about it? And you're also teaching kids. The book I would like to suggest is teaching children to be courageous. School isn't all sweetness and light. There are
Yeah.
times when you've got to be courageous. I don't particularly like this, but I've got to do it. It grows me.
Yeah.
And it's to look at those kind of things.
So, Richard, if we have to look at the book, and if we go back and just remind people that if they want a book, that they could hop onto the School Days website. At the moment, the book is under a section where they are calling it the Book of the Month. So you can find it under the Book of the Month, and there you can purchase the different copies or the copy or more of the book that you would like. If people want to give this as a gift, who else do you think people could give it to? Do you think it's the kind of book that perhaps might help grandparents with perhaps difficult grandchildren? Do you think it could go beyond that? Do you think it could be a book used by families for full discussions? Have you got thoughts around that?
Yes. I genuinely believe it's the kind of book that if you care for a kid and this child is important in your life, it's the kind of book that you will find something. I refuse to believe that no person could pick this up who's gone through a schooling system and can say, well, there was nothing in it that was relevant.
Yeah.
Everybody somewhere in this will say, I remember when I was in this class, why did I do so well in this class? Because the teacher acknowledged do so poorly in this class because the teacher was like this. So when you talk about, the book is on the School Days site. It's also Take a Lot, and internationally it's on Amazon America. So the book, when you spoke earlier on about it being for your family and friends, well, if they're folk overseas, they might be interested. But in a nutshell, I just think it's a simple little book based on a lot of common sense, and the common sense is not so much from me, but what I've learned from children, parents, from so many different sources. But I just hope that at the end, you pick up the book and you say, yes, this child here is like the child, and I'm just looking here, point number 39, affirm the quiet leader. Here's this child of ours, a gentle, quiet soul. This child is lost in the school, never comes forward. what can we do to make sure that this child shines, sparkles, and dazzles?
And I think that's what we want our children to do. We want them to sparkle and dazzle in their own way, not influenced by necessarily others, but just grow that within themselves. And I think the way the stories or the descriptions are written around each of these topics just highlights that in every single one of these situations, how children can be themselves and how they can work through the difficult things and become more positive within their own lives. So, Richard, as we end off, I want to go back to Professor Janssen's review where he writes, you could save yourself many hours of parenting workshops about how to encourage and support your child's education. And I truly think that this book really does that as he describes that. So, as we end off this evening, Richard, what are the kinds of things you want to say to people about the book, and why you think you would want a copy of it in a family's home?
The book is there. It's almost like a bit of a first aid book, but it's an
I love that.
educational first aid book. It's a book that just says, you know what? School can be wonderful, but it can also be terrible. But if we handle school correctly and sensibly, we can guarantee that our children are going to be happy at school. And I think if it's in that spirit that you look at the book and you just say, yes, this is our kid. We want him happy or we want her happy. And yes, this is what happened at school today. Is there any thought in the book? And I would like to suggest that there are suggestions that can actually help you jump the hurdles of school days. And at the end, say, you know what? School days actually were my happiest days. And may I just say, I want to thank you for your incredibly kind and generous comments about this little book. It's just a little book, and I don't know, you've hyped it up. Thank you very, very much for your lovely, warm comments. Really, really appreciate it.
For me, I don't think of it just as a little book. I loved your term that it's a first aid, and I think it can be family and teacher friendly and school friendly first aid. If you had one of these in the principal's office, that if he's got a child, perhaps opening it and having the chat with the child, encouraging children to read as they get older. You said from grade 6. I mean, I think that even children who are in high school could benefit from the tips if there was a book like this lying around at home and they could just read the little scenarios and it might help them cope in difficult spaces. So, Richard, I want to say thank you for this wonderful gift that you've given all of us in terms of this book. So, if anybody wants to purchase a copy, please hop into School Days or go and look at Take a Lot, or if you're not in the country, Amazon from a global point of view is in the US. But then on top of that, Richard is also a presenter and will happily come to your school or your organization and talk about the things in the book, talk about leadership, and really just engage with you. So I just want to say thank you, Richard, for the chat this evening, for sharing and for participating. For those of you who are watching, thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to end the session. Thanks so much, Richard.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Brazilian thanks.
Pleasure, pleasure.